Hi guys, welcome. If you're new here, my name's Nikki. I'm a beekeeper and I make beekeeping videos. If that's something you like watching, then hit the subscribe button. If you're one of my returning subscribers, thank you so much for coming back and listening to what I have to say. I really appreciate it. Today I'm going to do my week 14 inspection on our newest hive of honeybees. If you haven't seen the other videos in this series, I will link them down in the description below and you can check them out if you'd like. Well, I'm going to get out to the bee yard and we'll get started. It is a hot and muggy day. So we're going to see how well they do with this inspection. I still have my queen excluder off up here. They haven't been drawing as much, or barely any up here in the super. So hopefully they've made a little bit of progress. I am going to check for my queen, and I don't see her. Lots of baby bees up here, up on the top of the inner cover. I'm surprised this propolis is as dry as it is, or as hot as it is. Okay, good. Lots of bees up here. I'm just going to check my outer cover here, or my inner cover for my queen. And I don't see her. Now I did treat this hive for mites last week. I did just a sweep and treated all of them. I didn't film that just because I didn't have a lot of time and I wanted to get it done, and I've done mite inspections on this hive for this vlog before. But just at first glance, still not really a lot of progress up here. So I had considered last week switching them to their own feeder versus the community feeder, and I think I'm probably going to do that. I didn't do it last week. I wanted to give them another week. Kind of clustered here at the corner. It's very, very hot. So you'll see them on hot days bearding up the front of the hive, and they will also beard up the sides of the hive. So as typically when you open a hive, you'll see them clustered a little bit more toward the center, but on really hot days, they will cluster on the sides. And this is an empty frame, but I'm just going to show you how many bees are kind of clustered here on the corner. So we're going to put them down very, very gently. Go through this super. There is a little bit of comb on this frame, but just really not enough to kind of bring up and show you guys, because it's going to be very, very difficult to see. Same thing on this next frame, tiny, tiny amount of comb. Yeah, they're just starting to build out. Let's see if I can, the next frame I may be able to bring up and you can kind of see. We'll check it out. So again, I'm not walking these all the way up for you guys because there's really not a lot to see. I'll try to see if I can show you this one. But the super foundation is yellow, so it's really, really difficult to see. But there is some comb drawn out there, but again, it's really, really hard to pick that up on camera. They're not drawn out enough to store anything in them yet. So I am absolutely at the end of this inspection putting a feeder on for these guys. On the last inspection, they had done a really good job at building up down in the bottom boxes. And same thing here, just a little bit of comb drawn out. Somewhat unusual to see little bits of comb on all the frames instead of watching them start kind of with a central frame and draw that out. They typically will work from the middle and work their way out, drawing out the frames. But for some reason, they're not doing that. They're just drawing a little bit on each frame. This next one's drawn out a little bit more. Again, I'll bring these up if I think there's anything to show you. But so far, not really. You know, so there's a considerable amount of bees here. Again, they're drawing this frame out, but not enough to store anything. Now, if they do not get this super all the way drawn out before winter, I will end up giving them frames of honey from another hive that has made a surplus. So when I extract honey, I do a pretty modest extraction. So that way, in the case of bees like this, if they're not going to have enough to overwinter with, I can give back to the bees. And I'm also just checking for my queen on these frames since I don't have an excluder on. Lots of bees on this next outer frame. Like I said, they beard up the side of the hive when it's hot out. All right, girls. And again, see, you can see there's lots and lots of bees on this frame. But nothing significant up here, so I'm going to pull this off and we're going to check out the next one. Okay, we have lots and lots of bees up here in the second box. I did readjust some of these frames last week, just encourage them to draw them out, so we will see if that has happened. These outer frames are typically the hardest to get out. So this is a frame of syrup and nectar. It's really, really dark in color. This used to be a brood frame, which makes the cells a little bit darker, but it is a frame that we relocated and they are now using it as a honey frame. This here too, this is a frame of syrup and nectar. It's really, really full and they are starting to cap it over. So there's that side. And here you can see that side. This is going to be great stores for them for winter. And if you guys have followed this hive through the summer, you know they weren't really storing much of any resources up here. This top box was pretty much all brood at one point. So it's really encouraging it's encouraging to see them kind of doing what they're supposed to. Come on, lady. We had an inspection recently where I kind of had to stop a little early. And I'm hoping that's not the case today, but we shall see. Come on, get in there. You're stuck in the propolis. Alright, I got a girl stuck in the propolis, so we're gonna relocate her. She does not want to let go of my hive tool. You gotta get down, girl. There we go. Oh, definitely progress here. This was a frame they were struggling to draw out. They're continuing to draw it out more. It's got some syrup and nectar stored in here. And my queen is on this frame. We've got syrup and lots of larvae, some eggs, and my queen. They haven't completely removed her dot yet, but she is there. See if you can spot her. So there's a lot of larvae in there, some eggs, some syrup. And here is just a frame of syrup and nectar. I am going to put this frame back because my queen's on it, so I am not going to stick it on the ground. You see where she went to. I think she snuck to the other side. Where'd she go? There she is. Yeah, so this typically I leave outside of the hive. I'm not doing that today because my queen's on it. So we'll pull out the next one. Okay, and I've got a frame of brood with some syrup on the outer edges. This brood is capped. A couple drone cells. Still looking for queen cells. This hive likes to make them. And on this side, I've got a frame of eggs and capped brood. A little bit of syrup on the edges that's capped. I'll bring this up so you can check it out. We've got some eggs in this one, some capped brood, a little syrup around the edges, and here, let me check this. And here I've got a really pretty frame of capped brood. I gotta remember the order in which I pulled these out. There are a lot of bees in here. Okay, I've got a frame of larvae and eggs, a little bit of pollen and syrup around the edges. Oh, that propolis is so sticky. I got my finger stuck in it. And this side, we've got a frame of capped brood. And it looks like some empty cells. I got a bee emerging right now. That's one of my favorite things to see, is watching bees be born. So here we've got some capped brood and some empty cells. And this side we've got some eggs, some larvae, and a couple bees being born here. Now occasionally, since we saw the queen up here in the second box, occasionally you will end up seeing your queen twice during your inspection. They'll go down to the bottom box. Doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. So has that ever happened to you guys where you've been doing your inspection, you locate your queen, and then she moves through the hive and you find her a second time? Oh, it is hot today. These bees just have so much propolis. Okay, I've got a frame It looks to be pretty empty. No, for the most part, it's pretty empty, but there's some larvae in here. I've got an empty one, 2 empty queen cells on the bottom that I will destroy because we've seen our queen and those are empty. And I've got a frame here that's about half capped brood, and the other half looks to be eggs. So I will tell you, from last inspection till this inspection, the population has increased because there's a lot of bees in here. So there is that side of our frame. I'm going to check what is in that. So that side. And there is that side. Now I am going to go ahead and take these queen cells down. And this next frame was an empty frame that we moved toward the inside. So it was completely empty last week. Let's see if they've drawn anything out on it. If you watch the other ones, you know that they really were struggling with the last 3 frames in this box. So last week I moved them around. And we've got a tiny, tiny bit of comb drawn here on this side. And nothing on that side. I'll show you. There's really not much to see, but I will show you. That side's empty. This side's pretty empty, but they've started drawing a little bit of comb on there. So hopefully they will keep drawing it out. We do have some additional empty frames too, so we'll check them out and see. This is our heavy frame. Well, it's not too heavy. So I've got a frame of eggs, tiny amount of larvae. I think I've got a queen cell here. I do. An empty queen cell right there in the middle. I'm probably going to kind of gouge out that part of the frame because they're just rebuilding it. And I've got eggs and syrup and nectar on this side. Blowing them away to check for more queen cells. So there's a frame of eggs with a little bit of syrup. I'm trying to blow these bees away so you can see this queen cell on that side. So they keep building it there. I'm actually going to just really kind of gouge out that part of the wax to get them to stop building that queen cell there. But there were larvae and eggs on this side. And here comes Kiwi. I don't know if you'll be able to see her, but she is my helper out here with the bees. I know I've talked about her in the other videos, but if you haven't seen them, she's one of my cats, and she's the only one that likes coming out when I work with the bees. She hangs out incredibly close to them. For the most part, they leave her alone. And she kind of knows when they start to get temperamental and she'll take off. But she will actually lay in front of some of the hives and just kind of chill there throughout the day. And they seem to be unbothered by her. I was concerned at first when she was doing it because she's gray and she's hairy, and typically bees do not like that. I have a wind cover on my mic and it's gray and furry, and they will attack that. And sometimes on the video you can hear them doing that. So very, very heavy frame. So I've got a really incredibly heavy frame of syrup and nectar, and they are continuing to cap this over. And same thing on the other side. This frame looks beautiful. So again, they still haven't really done much in that super, but they have a lot of work still down here to do in these other boxes. And they are capping this over. And this is 100% stores for themselves during the winter. Lots and lots more resources down here for them. So I'm happy to see that. So here is a frame of syrup that they're starting to cap. I wish they'd draw it out a little bit. It looks like they are a tiny bit, but they are filling these in. This was an empty side of a frame last week, and they have started to draw it out as well. So this was empty. They started drawing on that, and the other side is some capped syrup and nectar. All right, girls, we gotta get you out of the way. And our last frame has been empty, so we're going to check it out. I'll probably give them another week to draw out what they have, and then I will move this frame inside as well. Lots of bees here, but this frame is empty, so I'm not going to walk that up for you. So I'm going to put this back together, take it off, and we'll look down in the bottom. So far, they look great. Okay, let's take a look down here. Man, that first deep is heavy. They definitely have way more stores in there than last week because it's significantly heavier. We still have the outer side of this frame that they really aren't doing a lot with. And we have an empty queen cell and lots of pollen here. And they're angry with me, so got lots of pollen in there. Let me scoot back. And the empty queen cell there in the center. There's a little bit of syrup. And there on the back side, they're just really not drawing anything back here. Okay, I think my recording stopped. So we'll show you here. This side we've got lots of pollen. And on this side, I've got some eggs and a lot of empty cells. Sorry, the recording automatically stopped, and it does that from time to time, so I'm not sure where it stopped, so I apologize if there's a gap in the video, but for their sake, I'm not going to try to rewind and find it, so I do apologize. Here I've got a frame of pollen and some capped brood and some empty cells. They've drawn this frame out a little bit more. Here is our frame of drone brood. There's some larvae. I don't see any recent eggs, but they have started putting some pollen in here as well. So there you can see our drone cells, some pollen. And on the back here we've got some little bit of capped brood and some pollen there as well. If you've got drone cells that are not capped yet, it's a good opportunity to look inside and see if you see any mites. They love drone brood. This bottom box is not nearly as propolized as the top deep. I've got just pretty much a whole frame here of pollen, bee bread. There's a little amount of capped brood in there, not much. And same thing on this side, lots and lots of bee bread and a tiny amount of capped brood. So there is that side and that side. I'm going to check, see if that's a queen cell. And it looks like maybe the start of one, so I'm going to go ahead and just destroy that. Yeah. So I've got another frame that has some capped brood on it, pretty good amount of capped brood, and some larvae, and some pollen around the edges. And this side is capped brood. So there we have our frame of capped brood. And this side is capped brood and larvae with some pollen around the edges. And I've got another frame that's got lots of pollen in it. There's some empty cells. It looks like they're backfilling with some syrup and nectar. And capped brood here on the other side. And I'm trying to see. I don't see any eggs. The rest of the cells look pretty empty. So there is that side of our frame. And there's that side. Couple more frames to go here. Behavior-wise, I've had a couple times here and there through the inspection where they got a little agitated, but overall, they're pretty well behaved today. Which I'm genuinely surprised because it's so hot. So I've got a frame of eggs and pollen. I'm happy to see so much pollen in here, and some larvae. And on this side we've got eggs, larvae, a little bit of capped brood. No syrup or nectar on this frame. Just blowing them away looking for queen cells. So I'm happy that she's laying down here a little bit more. So we've got eggs, larvae, and capped brood. And on this side we've got some pollen and some eggs and some larvae. So toward the end of the summer season into fall, your queens typically start laying a little less than they had been. So far she's not doing that, so she's still kind of keeping up her pace. I'm really hoping that these bees do well over winter because this I'm happy with this queen. I do want to split this hive next year and have her make a daughter. So this is a frame of pollen and some empty cells. And this side, there are some eggs in here. Some eggs, but most of these cells for the most part look pretty empty. There were some pollen stores. It looks like they've used those. So that is this side. For the most part, these cells are empty. And that side of our frame. Okay, let's check out this next frame. This frame is one they struggled to draw out correctly, and they had been putting a lot of queen cells on. So it kind of was drawn out in a weird way. So it's still kind of got that comb in the center that needs to be fixed, but there's no queen cells on it. I may just actually take that off, that section of comb out, because queen can't lay in there. They're so misshapen, but the rest has syrup in it. And they just started drawing a tiny, tiny bit here on this side. So this side has been empty. They've got a little bit of progress there. You see that there in the center where they were drawing queen cells. They stopped doing that, but those cells are pretty much useless. They're really misshapen. They can't really store anything in them. So I'm actually just going to take that part of the comb out, and it will encourage them to draw them out correctly. So I kind of gave it some time to see if they would correct it on their own, and so far they haven't. So I'm just going to take that section of comb out. And hopefully that will encourage them to draw it out correctly. Because again, it's pretty much useless comb at that point. Let's see what they've got here on the outer frame. Now they have drawn queen cells on this outer frame in previous weeks. I haven't seen one for a bit, but they have. And I've got some empty cells, and they're starting to store a little bit of syrup in it, not much. So there's that side, not much to see there. And that side. So I'm going to put this back together. I'm going to leave the queen excluder off for another week, and then we'll go over this inspection. Okay guys, that wraps up week 14 with these bees. Still doing really, really well. The queen is not decreasing at all. We did see her on this inspection. There are lots of eggs in here. They're really not doing much still with that honey super. It's a tiny amount of comb in there, but they have really started to kind of bulk up what they have in the bottom boxes, and they have drawn out some of that comb a little bit more. That second deep was significantly heavier than it was last week, and I even struggled a little bit to take that off of the hive. That's a good sign for me. As far as the bees are concerned, I want to make sure that they have enough stores in the hive to get them through winter. We are starting to see what I had hoped they would do weeks and weeks ago, and that is where they are kind of readjusting what's in the hive, and that queen is laying a little bit more in the bottom and storing more up in the top, which is very, very nice to see. I'm not sure if I mentioned it in the video or not, but if they do not draw out that honey super, I'm not really concerned. I have frames of honey from other hives I can give them should they need that to overwinter with, so I'm still going to keep that on for them and see, you know, what they get drawn out. We still have our fall nectar flow to come. Well, if you guys have any questions about these bees, please leave them down in the comment section below, or I guess just any questions you have about beekeeping. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.